right now, here's an opportunity from us to hear directly from the industry that was, disappointed with what the minister had to share last week. And last week, Jeff McClellan, the Minister of Business, announced the loan support to help large tourism operators, as they say, that large operators serve as anchors for the sector, drawing air travelers, cruise ships, and visitors to Nova Scotia. That's why the province is going to back loans taken by large tourism operators so they can receive better interest rates and more favorable terms at the bank of their choice. The program will be administered by the Nova Scotia COVID-19 Response Council at Dalhousie University. The letter or the word immediately Friday afternoon, well, not immediately, but just in short order. While we appreciate the need to access capital, the limitations on this program for many other large, mid-sized, and smaller operators who do not meet the threshold is extremely unfair. And to hear more, we have Darlene Grant-Fyander on the line with us this afternoon, president of the Tourism Industry Association of Nova Scotia. Darlene, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Sheldon.
When you describe this as missing the mark, that's a pretty blunt assessment. Tell us why.
Well, we've been, affected greatly by COVID-19. The tourism industry is at the center of the pandemic. We've been meeting regularly with the government, with the minister, on what the industry needs for support, what would be the best chance to not only sustain some businesses, but also help in the recovery. We were assured the industry would have input into the recovery supports to come out. Even as late as last Wednesday, we were assured that the program that was coming out of Dalhousie University would be vetted by the industry. And then on Friday, a program is announced of $50 million loan backing. Very select sections of the industry were identified. And this will do very little for the 95% of the businesses in the province in terms of helping them to, as I said, survive and recover from what they've been through. We've lost $1.7 billion in revenue this year. We've put in front of the government very practical solutions, policy adjustments that could take place, and this announcement of $50 million that is going to be spent or committed within 7 days, that's how long people have to apply for it. It's just baffling. It's also baffling how Dalhousie University was, assigned this task without any consultation with the tourism industry. It makes no sense. The Department of Business has staff. There are Crown corporations that administer loans all the time. So where this came from and why this particular focus when the entire industry and thousands of businesses throughout the province are struggling. And you reference property tax as one issue, and that's something that, is going to force the closure of a lot of businesses, because what we want to see is policy adjustments that take into account the devastation of revenue for businesses. The word large is misleading as well, because none of the large hotels would apply for this. It's very specific sectors or businesses within the sector. So we believe that in this situation, the pandemic is something none of us has faced before, that, the industry should be working with the government. We understand the government doesn't have an endless pot of money, but to come out with $50 million that, at best, with $15 million cap per applicant, you're talking perhaps, if everyone got the max, we're talking 3 to 4 businesses in this province would benefit from that if they got the max. Totally unacceptable, Sheldon.
Darlene Grant-Fyander is here with us, the president of the Tourism Industry Association of Nova Scotia. The news release said by helping the larger operators, the government says small and medium operators also benefit. There are direct or indirect benefits for everyone. And if I remember correctly to what the minister had to say earlier today, maybe businesses are in a good place and they won't even need to access this money. What does this say about the program, its launch, and the announcement late on Friday?
Well, again, I go back to there's an industry here or association. There's sector associations like the Hotel Association, Restaurant Association. We're all very aware of what the issues and what the challenges are for our members, and again, in every Nova Scotia community. So to not consult or talk to the industry and then decide that you're going to spend your first $50 million of tourism recovery in this manner, and this is not about the operators. If there's a program available and people can apply to it, but it's very specific in terms of the criteria. The cap amount is large enough, as I said, that could limit the number greatly. We're talking, if the 3 applications were at the max of 15, you're talking 3 operators. Again, you have so much money to go around. Is this the best way to support Nova Scotia's tourism industry? And we would say absolutely not.
Not to, draw too much attention to it, but there is a quote in that news release from Friday from Dennis Campbell, CEO of Ambassadors, Grey Line, and Murphy's on the Water, saying this type of loan support could provide our company with much needed financial stability as we adapt to this new industry-wide crisis under very challenging market conditions. What does this say to you that government chose to use this quote from Mr. Campbell?
I'm not sure. And again, for me, it's not about the operators. In terms of there's a program that's been put in place that would, and if an operator could try to take advantage of it, I don't begrudge them doing that. This is the government's responsibility, along with Dalhousie, to decide that this is the best route to go for Nova Scotia's tourism industry, that it will benefit 3 to 4 at the max operators in the province. So it's not equitable. It's not the best way to spend $50 million, and the tourism industry should have been part of that consultation. And I go back, why Dalhousie? And who decided at Dalhousie that this was a priority for Nova Scotia's tourism industry? We were told this is an arm's length process and they're making the decision and the industry will be consulted. We were not consulted. And so I'm asking the question, why? And as I said, the industry's been incredibly patient. They're not looking for handouts. Businesses are going to close. A number of businesses have closed. They've remortgaged. They've done everything that they can do. They do want their government to stand up for them, to help them in the areas that they can best help them, because we understand there's not enough money to save every business, but there are policy things. I'm going to talk about the property tax issue for a minute because it's such a good specific example. Yep. The provincial government had agreed to backfill the municipalities so that they understood the municipalities would be compromised if people couldn't pay the property tax, commercial tax, the businesses couldn't. So the province stepped in early and said, okay, we'll provide, I think it's $350 million pot. So if you don't collect your taxes, you'll be able to draw from that. So instead of making it a condition to the municipalities that they pass that on to operators, it's an inconsistent approach across the province. We have some municipalities, charging 15% and saying you have to pay by the end of October. Again, you have businesses that have had no revenue, and their assessments are based on revenue from 2 years ago. So it would have been very easy for the provincial government to say, we will provide these resources. All we need you to do is be consistent, be fair to the operators. I mean, if we're giving you a loan at 2%, you pass that on to an operator. So again, there are things that government can do that don't even cost them a lot of money. We've been asking for that travel incentive program since June. They said, no, it doesn't work. We're not going to do it. New Brunswick just extended their travel incentive program, and because it was so successful, and operators are feeling very confident about leveraging the Atlantic bubble and pushing people around the province. So that was a $3 million program, but instead we come out with a $50 million loan guarantee that is going to benefit, and I don't begrudge operators, but it's going to benefit a very few businesses that are aware of it. Now, that's the other thing. The application deadline is 7 days, less than 7 days. It came out on Friday. The application deadline ends on Thursday. So who knows about it? That $50 million is going to be committed within 6 days. And this is the first businesses have heard about it.
Yeah, and again, not to throw shade, but when one business owner was quoted in the news release, they clearly knew about the program before everybody else. And it's not an allegation, it's a reality. So the Tourism Industry Association is saying, you missed the mark, government. There's not enough time. The money is, great, but it's not nearly going to address the problem in a way that it should. So if government didn't consult with you, you had a plan, or at least you were thinking about this long before they make this announcement. What do we need to tell them? What do you need them to hear?
Well, we told them it's not acceptable. They're not listening to the industry. Again, you think about tourism generates $2.6 billion in revenue for this province. It's the largest sector in terms of private sector, revenue generation. $300 million in tax revenue for the government to pay for healthcare and education. It behooves them to support the sector in a way that A, they can afford, and B, is going to get these businesses able to survive and start up again. And that extends to, the marketing, looking at it beyond a 4-month window, looking at product development. There's so many, it needed to be a strategic approach. We've never been through this kind of thing before. It's the most significant economic event that any of us will face. And so it requires a new way of doing business. And if we don't do that, we lost. I would argue that $50 million with listening to the industry, working with the industry would go a long way to ensuring a lot of small businesses in rural communities and large hotels could pay their taxes this year. It could have been done much better. But again, I asked the question, how come Dalhousie University has been, given the responsibility for the success of Nova Scotia's tourism industry?
I guess the last point we'd like to make here as we wrap this up, the opposition party said government needs to start listening. They were in support of this credit, the tax credit that you had mentioned, the same thing New Brunswick has been doing for quite some time. Why do you think the government said no to that?
I don't know. I mean, we've been at the table since day one. The industry's been doing what it can do to ensure that it can, they've been restructuring their business, their own debt. They've been investing in new standards around cleanliness. They've been doing more with less. And they've been waiting. And again, I can't answer that. I hope that you ask the hard questions that have to get asked. There's a lot of questions that have to be asked around this. But, I mean, I go back to, we're in extraordinary times. Government should start doing business differently and re-examine how having, a values-based approach to some of this stuff will serve all Nova Scotians. But this is not the way we should be doing business coming out of the worst, global event that we've ever been in.
We know you're on the move, and Darlene, thank you for being available to us, and we'll wish you well, and we'll try to find answers to those questions.
Thanks very much, Sheldon.
You take care. She is the president of the Tourism Industry Association of Nova Scotia, Darlene Grant-Fiander. Not happy, very disappointed in government. And yes, the Progressive Conservative opposition on Friday had weighed in with its concerns as well, saying that it's not likely to help those small and medium-sized businesses, which they rightfully point out are the backbone of the economy, and that they're in survival mode and that this will in no way help.